back, everybody, to TRB. It's the Resistance broadcast, and we are live. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am John. That's James and Lacey, and we are here to talk about the latest Star Wars news, also the latest episode of The Bad Batch, and a bunch of other stuff, including our first opener that we'll get to in just a minute. But first, we want to thank everybody for joining us. If you are not subscribed to the Resistance broadcast, just look us up, Resistance broadcast, on any podcast app. Follow us there for free. You get 2 episodes every week. And then, of course, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@the-resistance broadcast. Subscribe there as well. If you're watching us there, you are probably already subscribed. So welcome, everybody. We have a great loaded show, so we're going to get into it very quickly. Before I do, just want to say hello to James and Lacey. And did you guys see Ahmed Best's little Instagram that spun everybody into a tornado?
Yeah,
I did.
Should I bring it up?
Let's pop it up. See what he's got going on. So Ahmed Best shared to Instagram, his official account, him in a motion capture rig, and used a bunch of hashtags like Jar Jar Binks, Sith Lord, Kelleran Beck. So we're not really sure, but he used the quote from Godfather 3 saying, "Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in." And then I believe there was another post with him tagged at Activision around the same time. So people are they're believing
It's this one,
a video game thing.
It's he's tagged Activision right there. He tagged Activision.
Yeah, but someone else there tagged his name in the lobby of Activision.
Oh, yes. That's what I saw. Yeah. So we're thinking video game here. What are your guys' thoughts on this? We also heard news today. I don't know that it's official, but that the first-person shooter Star Wars game from Respawn has just been canceled. So a lot of craziness going on in Star Wars video games. I'm not a big gamer. What are your guys' takes on Ahmed Best and this sort of thing? Do you think we're looking at just a video game? I'm not saying just a video game, but should people not be excited about seeing Jar Jar Binks back on a live action screen?
Yeah, I think it's probably video game related. But the thing about the Star Wars video games to me is it's not real until it's done. Like, because of Eclipse and all these cancellations and other things like that. Like, even with the movies, we've gotten into that stance a little bit where we're like, when we see it, we'll believe it kind of thing. But the video games to me have been like that for a very long time. And I'm probably even more firm than I am with any other Star Wars property. If they tell me they're doing this thing and they make this big announcement, I go, I don't think that's going to happen. We'll see. Like, whatever comes out, I will be like, cool, they just announced this. And I'm like, what do you mean they just announced this? We've known about this. And I'm like, we've known about a million video games. They just don't make them. They announce them, don't make them. I mean, I think this would be cool. It's neat that he's involved. And I think, like, if you're to this point too, where you're actually like recording the characters and stuff, maybe there is more to it, but I don't think anybody really knows what this is. So we'll see.
Yeah, I would assume, because he does do the hashtag Kelleran Beck, that it's him playing that character digitally, which is cool. He might be going into some type of Jedi game, or maybe downloadable content, or some type of skin for something. Like, you don't really know. I hope he's a part of the game. That would be really cool, just because I love seeing Ahmed Best like thriving in the Star Wars world now, like getting all these opportunities. It's really cool. Just like James too, like, it's hard to get excited about stuff, anything Star Wars really, until it happens. Because I feel like over the past 3 to 4 years, like, it's just been nonstop, like all different genres, whether it be books, or should I say mediums, books, comics, video games, movies, show, like all different stuff gets canceled. So until it actually happens and we get an announcement and even if we get an announcement sometimes, even if we once we have it in front of us, I wouldn't be too crazy about it, but I'm really pumped for him. And like, it's really awesome that he gets to talk about it, because as we know, Lucasfilm and Star Wars in general are really kind of quiet about these things. So for him to get out in front of it and be like, yep, I'm doing this. This is happening. How cool is this? It's nice. It's a nice change.
Yeah. I like it for him, because he obviously went through so much, and it's cool to see him coming out the other side. And to like Hayden Christensen, but Hayden, as far as I know, didn't go through as dark of times as Ahmed Best did. At least he didn't publicly say so.
Right.
Good to see him, doing well and having some fun with this, joking, saying like, "Oh, they're bringing me back again," when he's obviously very excited to be involved with Star Wars. So, whatever it may be, I hope it does come to fruition, and it's good to just see him well.
Quick little thing too. I was remembering now as I'm looking at a different article that EA has had exclusive rights to Star Wars for 10 years, and now that we're past that, maybe what we're saying about video games is going to change for Star Wars because more prominent or just more publishers in general are going to be working on stuff. So I don't know. And that's why I was like trying to find, what does Activision have for Star Wars? And they might not, I don't know, maybe they do, but like right now it might not be anything. But I was thinking maybe they had like a series where it's like Galaxy of Heroes or something, and you're like, oh, maybe it's just that, maybe it's something simple. But anyway.
Yeah, we'll find out. So let us know what you think in the comments, of course, if you're joining us live, or if you're just if you're listening after the fact. But for those of us who are with us live, we just want to let you know we're about to get into Resistance Report, but we are doing Ask the Resistance live later in the show. So if you have a question, a Star Wars question you'd like us to discuss on this episode, pop it in the chat and use the hashtag #AskTheResistance, so we know that that's a question you want us to use on the show. And super chats, if you want to support the show that way, those get light sped up to the front of the line. But we have a bunch of stories to get into. So, James, why don't we kick it off here with the Resistance Report?
It's the Resistance.
We're going to kick it off with this story from Deadline, which was thankfully aggravated by what?
What about Bad Batch?
Oh, you're right. No, we're not going to kick it off with the story we're going to talk about Bad Batch first, actually.
Spoilers.
Missed it at the top. Yeah. I've been with the Bad Batch reaction show for seasons 1, season 2. We're on season 3 right now, and unfortunately, it's the final seasons that might be the end of the Bad Batch reaction show after this. So if you haven't yet checked out those episodes, but I haven't even really gotten the time to talk to you guys, John, Lacey, about the Bad Batch and what your thoughts are. Where you're at in the series. Are you caught up? Are you ahead? Because we were privileged to get some episodes. I don't know where are you at, John. What are you thinking?
I am caught up. This latest episode, season 3, episode 4, I actually felt was endearing. It was a very intimate episode in terms of the players involved, but I think those episodes are good because you really get to see two people develop what their relationship is, especially one that was probably unexpected earlier on. But seeing Crosshair and Omega, and like I was reminded of an Obi-Wan line, there are alternatives to fighting, and that's sort of like the theme of this episode, where Omega's Crosshair has these incredible skills to be able to get out of these situations, and high level of combat skills, sniper skills, and Omega is insistently saying like there's other ways for us to get where we have to go. And she's humanizing him in a way that is very Star Wars to me. So I thought that was cool. So overall, I enjoyed the episode. The ending, not sure what to expect there, but one thing that did catch my eye, and I don't know how deliberate animation directors are, like live action directors, but when Wrecker and Hunter are coming down the ramp of the other ship, and Omega goes to hug them, and it's a very sentimental moment, but then Crosshair walks down the ramp. They both look like Wrecker's eyes, his brow furrows, as though like, oh, I don't trust this guy. And then Hunter's fists, he tightens his fists as like the very last frame. So they're both clearly not on board, not bought in yet. But I do think because this is the last season, a happy reunion is coming. And there will be a moment that Crosshair does something to earn their trust back too. But overall, solid episode. I like the lesson taught there. And I thought the animation was good too.
Yeah. Well, it was a pretty thorough walkthrough. Lacey, what are your thoughts? Bad Batch so far.
So I am caught up. How do I say this without offending everybody? I I'm going to be honest. I've always been honest. I always will be honest. I am having a hard time connecting to this show. I am not really getting into it, and I'm not really connecting with the characters, and it's just not for me. And that's okay. That totally happens. And that's why within Star Wars, there's all these different characters and stories that you can kind of pick and choose your adventure. That being said, I think the animation is incredible. I really want to know how much a credit is worth, because they talk about it a lot in this episode. Like, oh, we have to get this many credits. And then she's like winning like 45,000 credits.
Yeah, 30. They needed 30,000 credits.
And then she won 45. I do like the parallels with the stuff that the Empire does with like Andor, where you basically, it's over and over again. We are learning that like the Empire sucks, which everybody knew, but like how they never play by the rules and they're always going to win. Rigged system. Exactly. Thank you, James. But yeah, I'm just not connecting with these characters. I'm super pumped that everybody's excited about it, and like everybody has something to watch this week, and I see fans online talking about how much they love it and how much it means to them, and I love that for you. I would never take that away from you. I'm pumped for you. It's just not the show for me, so keep enjoying
that's
it.
all good. Yeah.
I just feel bad because I feel like online, if you say you don't like anything, all of a sudden you're a hater, and it's like, that doesn't mean I'm a hater. I just
Depends on what the thing is. Like, it's still cool
I
to make
guess
fun of
so.
the Rise of Skywalker, but it's
Or
not
the
cool to
prequels
do the
even.
prequels anymore.
And I think the thing that I'm grappling with is that I
think people still do.
I love animation. Like, I love animated films. I love animated shows. So like, to not be the biggest fan of this one, like, it hurts me. So it is what it is.
Yeah,
I think the voice acting's great. I think everything about it is wonderful. It's not for me.
Right on.
Yeah, the only thing, I mean, you guys know my reactions. Everybody who's watching the show, like if you're checking those out. So I talk about the episodes, but I did kind of find it funny. I wanted to clarify something today because I think it might even continue. I'm not sure. But like, I got a lot of hate for not liking Batcher.
Oh,
you did? James is getting hate again?
It was like some comments, like, tell me you've never loved a dog without telling me, without saying it. Stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
he has a dog, guys.
Yeah, we have dogs, but like,
James like, I lost my dog 2 years ago, you jerk.
It was only one of these things where I'm like, it's a little frustrating. Like, if you have a really good friend and you know that their dog is like problematic and like it's dragging them down or whatever, it's like, it's not that I don't like dogs. It's that like that dog seems to be like, it's a problem, And in this case, they're trying to like get away and be sneaky. And yet the dog seems to be the issue for every time there's conflict in the episode. It's because Batcher was doing something, And so I don't know, but it just felt like it was an easy way to write a story. Like, oh, well, let's just, like add a kid or add something that, nobody's going to blame. But then all these problems ensue because they have that thing. And it's like, just get rid of the thing, I don't know. But
James watches those Sarah McLachlan ASPCA commercials, and he's like, yeah.
No.
James, you are some kind of mystery. I'll tell you that.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Let's get into that story that I teased earlier about from Deadline, because it has to do with the Mandalorian and Grogu and how they are doing something pretty groundbreaking. They are going to be shooting the movie entirely in California, and it is going to be California's largest tax credit that they've ever given a film. We could talk a little bit about that,
Disney
but I want to
tax credits.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to thank Star Wars Newsnet too for aggregating the whole story. It's difficult sometimes when you're reading a lot of different like political information on like tax credits and things, but they did a really good job of breaking
like
it
the
down
opening crawl of the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, exactly. Like the tax federation.
The kids are like, taxation.
Yeah. Well, let's get started. Lacey, let's start with you on this one. What are your thoughts on not only that information about like how they're shooting in California and the tax and everything like that, but also a little bit about the 6 months that they're planning on shooting and how that ties in like with the movie and everything.
Yeah, so it's wild. According to Deadline, they're hiring 500 crew members, 54 cast members, and 3,500 background players for 92 days in California this year. Wow, that's a lot of people. My first thought, honestly, was get ready for the leaks, because if they can't keep stuff
It's true.
out of these small
yeah.
sets like Obi-Wan and even Ahsoka, which, by the way, everybody knows it's the guys playing stormtroopers. So I hope those guys know that everybody knows it's them. So maybe they should. That being said, 3,500 people are going to be on these sets. Like, get ready for every single detail that they experience. Maybe not photos, but like sources say that this happened. Like, everything's gonna be out there. But first of all, I'm pumped that they're hiring this many people. It means a lot of people are getting work. They said they're gonna have a record-breaking expenditures of $166,438,000 in wages, which is awesome. Like I said before, I made a joke about it, but I really mean it. Like, I don't know why Disney's getting a tax credit, because Disney doesn't need tax credit, but I stand by that. Other than that, it's not surprising that it's taking 6 months. I think in the article they talked about how Rise of Skywalker took about 6 months, and a lot of films take that time to film. It is crazy when you look at it as a season of The Mandalorian versus the movie. The season of Mandalorian, I think they filmed what, John, like 6 weeks?
What, for a season of The Mandalorian?
Yeah,
6 months.
6
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is going to take 5 months, right? But then Mandalorian takes 6 months. But the interesting thing is that Mandalorian the television show ends up with way more footage and content that they've shot over the course of the 6 months. So what are they doing for 5 months is what the question that would be posed. But it is a movie. It's a bigger production. So it's going to take, they're going to do bigger things with that 2 hours of content. Probably.
Yes, I misunderstood the timing. So it takes longer to make The Mandalorian because it is a longer show, because it's like 8 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas the movie's 2 hours, but it's taking about the same time.
About the same, yeah. Just shy of what it takes to film.
I mean, it is a big movie.
1-hour episodes or whatever.
It's a bigger production.
Yeah, it's a bigger production. They have to do principal photography. They have to do reshoots. If they have to do reshoots, I don't know if that's included in this, but then they also have to do location scouting, all this stuff. It is interesting that supposedly, according to Collider, they're starting shooting in June, because this movie doesn't come out until 2026. So if they start shooting in June, they're going to have it done basically almost this year, a little into next year.
October. Yeah. So June to October, which is the 5-month span.
Right. So then they would have a long time in post. Now, I wonder if that's because they're doing a lot of CG. What does that really mean? I'm not really sure. I'm sure John has thoughts about it, because John's reported on this for years, like different processes of filmmaking.
A little rusty, but
we had an episode recently where I was like, that doesn't seem right. And John was like, all that seems right to me. And I was like, well, take his word better than mine.
Well, yeah, so the man is did you have other things, Lacey?
I mean, not really. It's pretty straightforward. It's just numbers and months.
Yeah.
Not to downplay this news. It's still important news because it's happening. But
Mando was like a 12-month cycle where it would be like filming October to March, and then the other half of the 12 months is post-production. And that's how that show operated pre-pandemic. First season, second season, we're pretty much in lockstep with that. Then movies, like for an example, like I think like April of 2014, The Force Awakens filmed, and then they finished about a year before it came out. And then they had a year of post-production. So if this finishes at the end of 2024, if it's the first movie to come out, it has about a little less than a year and a half in post-production, which is great, because the reflecting back on the sequel trilogy, I think the prevailing thought was that they felt rushed with post-production. So if you give Favreau an extra 5-6 months, maybe reshoots as part of that. Maybe it's like, hey, maybe Pedro's available. We can get some scenes with him and reshoots or something. Like, there's a lot they can do, and maybe they can use that time for other things that may be tied to this. I don't know, but it's never a bad thing when you hear a movie has a lot of time. The only thing that concerns me about the all California thing. So for perspective, for people who are like really worried about this, from like because if maybe it feels cheap, or like is it just going to look like California and stuff?
AK John's talking about himself.
No, well,
only because you
Ahsoka-
made those comments about Ahsoka and stuff.
Well, if you're going to go to a brand new galaxy for the first time ever, and it looks like it's right off the 405, like, come on.
I'm just saying, because you're like some people, and I'm like, so you?
Well, here's my thing, because I'm a Favreau. Favreau's king. Like,
I know.
I love Favreau. He makes billion-dollar movies. I have all the faith in the world because he's doing this movie. If any of these stories came out and he wasn't the one making the movie, I'd be very nervous. But because it's Favreau, I'm all good. Having said that, for people really freaking out, like Iron Man was filmed exclusively in California, minus I think one segment in Nevada, and it's you could split hairs about that. And it kicked off the MCU, and it was a great success. And I know it's not in a galaxy far, far away, so there's different elements here in terms of visual effects, but that's a big time movie. And the thing about Favreau is, the notion about him or idea about him is that he rarely leaves California to make productions. So part of this whole deal was, I'll make the Mando movie, but I'm staying here. We're doing it here. I'm not going to England. I'm not doing any of that. And they're like, fine, do it here. So my only concern is it going to be volume reliant too much? So that remains to be seen. I don't know what they have for a budget, because them reporting like this wouldn't shock me if Disney put gave this information a deadline or whatever, because like, when does a movie ever report on this is how many jobs we're creating and how many wages we're like? I've never heard of that before. All I've heard is, here's the budget for this movie and we're gonna hope it's good and we hope you like it, and it's all about the consumer.
I assume
the PR spin on the tax credit.
I know
people like me go, ugh, tax credit. And they're like, well, we're also creating all these jobs.
Like,
so
applause. Like,
I'm just saying that's what it probably is the spin.
Yeah, I don't remember ever hearing a movie like reported about that way.
My thought is that it's probably because it's the largest tax credit. This happens with all the movies, but when something breaks the record, then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh shoot, and like and they start looking into it, and they're like, well, now that I'm looking into it, yeah, it's like tons of people that they're going to be hiring. It's exclusively to California. That's a Jon Favreau thing, which if that's a Jon Favreau thing and that's like a trademark of his, then it's not even really that common. So it's like, this is sort of even a rare thing that California probably even looks at this, and it probably hasn't happened in a long time. So when he asked for the money in today's money, the tax credit in today's money, it broke the record from some other movie years and years and years ago that was exclusively to California. That was also a big name, maybe it was Iron Man, who knows, Sure. But actually all that made me think, John, that it isn't going to rely on the volume. Because I started thinking all those people, I mean, I know there's going to be scenes, they're not in every scene, but I'm saying you have a lot of these big, huge scenes. So you're not doing like CGI extras and stuff.
I don't think they are. I just hope that they aren't, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, yeah, I expect them to use the locations throughout the state. California has a lot of different terrain. You can go to Northern California and maybe capture something different than you're going to see in Southern California or whatever. So it's not like our state, my state, where it's just like, there it is, take your pick. But so I am excited about it. I didn't like bug out too much about it. I just hope when we start hearing about filming, we hear like locations like, oh, now they're filming up in wherever, like up by San Francisco or wherever, just so they get away from Manhattan Beach, if they're just in that and on that set. And I am a little worried about the leaks too. Lacey makes a great point, because it seems like those LA
good luck
get very leaky. So
Yeah, if this is
but
the opportunity for the Mandalorian to sort of shoot like Andor in the sense where they like go to a airport, you know,
Yeah.
and they're like using that set to sort of extend and bring it to life. It's like, well, then good for it, you know. And
Yeah.
maybe all of this time has to do with a lot with scheduling. They're like, well, the only time we can get there is like during this week, so we got to shoot this stuff over there and you know move things around. So it's a long extended shoot. It's being shot for a lot of money, probably because it's real locations, real sets, and it's going to take time to build all that stuff. So all of that makes me feel a little bit less reliant on that technology. Because the other thing too is like, wow, that is an awesome piece of technology. It is one of those things where you can notice, and I think Disney wants to go above and beyond and say like, we're not really doing that, you know. We're not doing the volume for this production because it is what it is, you know. It's a feature movie.
It's
theatrical
one thing
movie.
if they want to cut corners with the Disney Plus shows, but if they start trying to cut corners with a Star Wars movie, then I think it's a big problem. So hopefully that's not the case. That's all.
Yeah, and I think we're not far away from that being okay. I think like the fact that we're even looking at the Mandalorian right now and we're like tweaking it a little bit. It's like give it a little bit longer, a couple more years, put a little bit more money into that technology. We probably aren't going to be able to tell the difference, but we still are in that weird spot right now. A new thing came out today for Avatar, The Last Airbender, and a bunch of it is shot on the volume, and they're like not afraid to show it at all. But I've been seeing people comment on some of the shots don't quite feel right, and it's a little bit because that technology is amazing for what it is, but also it can be noticed. It's almost like that technology falls in uncanny valley, which isn't quite right because that's human faces and stuff, but it's this like thing where like you know that the background's wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it. But anyway, all that to be said, I think that the Mandalorian Grogu is putting a lot of money into it, and that's a good thing. So
yeah,
that's all I'm seeing in this report. Moving on though, let's talk about the Acolyte. Let's move back to Star Wars television. Amandla Stenberg did an interview with Magazine C, and if you were able to look at the pictures in here, she's wearing crazy expensive stuff. This isn't normally a I mean, it's kind of similar to what Hayden did recently. Like he looked very stylish, but they put in this particular magazine, they put all this stuff about how much she was wearing and all this, and I just thought it was like crazy, like $35,000 dresses and stuff. Is nuts.
How about the $53,000 necklace she was wearing?
Yeah. It was pretty wild to like look at the pictures, and they're all cool photos and stuff, but it's like this, and then the background of the article is her just talking about science fiction and like how she feels very drawn to, she felt like a very forced moment, you know, when she was cast. Like this is the place she wanted to be. But Lacey, I'll start with you on this one. What are your thoughts on this article and you know, her coming to the Acolyte, her entering Star Wars Galaxies?
I think Amanda's going to have an amazing time in Star Wars. They've already said that they can't believe they're in Star Wars, and who they get to play in the Star Wars universe is insane. I'm pumped they are playing against the guy from Squid Game. I love Squid Game. I had to rewatch that. I keep saying that, but I really do mean it. But going into the context of where it plays in the High Republic and how it kind of ties into what George did, and I really liked the quote that they gave, which is the idea is kind to honor the ethos of Star Wars and ideas around the Force, and also challenge them, hopefully harmoniously.
Harmonious?
Yes, harmoniously. So I like that because I was like, oh, okay, cool. So they're going to go along with what George already did and play in that sandbox, but then also challenge those ideas, and that they're not necessarily trying to break the mold or do something new just for the sake of doing something new. To me, it read like, hey, we're going to play here and we're going to like kind of ask questions here and there, which is what Leslie Headland has always said. You know, the writer director of the series is saying that she constantly is challenging what she knew about the Force and challenging what she loved about Star Wars, and she used to write fanfic, and like this is such a dream project for her. So Amanda's playing in that. I agree. The clothing definitely stuck out to me throughout this whole article, because as I'm reading about, the Hunger Games, it's like belt, Dior, $1,500.
I'm like, what magazine is this? Is this a style magazine? It has to be, right?
I don't know, but it made me laugh because it would be like, oh, I live in New York, and Amanda was talking about how her apartment was falling apart during an audition with Scarlett Johansson, where like the ceiling was falling down, and then it's like belt, Gucci.
Yeah, I'm like, sell your belt, fix the problem.
But how expensive are the accessories and clothing they give the people on magazine A and magazine B? Because this is just magazine C. So you got to figure those.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. So stupid.
This is one of those things where I'm sure she didn't get to keep any of this. She was just styled, and they just like put it on her, took the photos, and then like it became part of a catalog. But yeah, it was definitely interesting to see the context of both of her reading her interview and then seeing these like crazy high fashion photos and stuff mixed in with it. John, what are your thoughts on the article?
By the way, I also liked how they talked about social media and how generation, Gen Z has grown up with social media and is a part of social media and it's who they are, but at the same time hating it at the same time. Because I find like I am very much on that path recently of I love it and I love the online jokes. I'm chronically online, as they say, and I'm always in it and I know what's going on. But at the same time, I despise it and I don't want anything to do it. And there are days that you just have to log off. And Amanda talking about how they had a flip phone because they didn't want an iPhone, but then they moved their SIM card between flip phone and iPhone when they're taking breaks. And I was like, this is wild.
Well, yeah. And she said, depending on where she is, like in a specific business sense, like right now, I need these people to be able to contact me, and I need to be online for these reasons or whatever. But when I'm not, I'll pull it out. So,
but talking about how the algorithms play into everything that you see and say and think and feel, and just reminding people, I was like, she's so smart. I wish people would listen to this more often of like, hey, you're in an echo chamber. Remember that. Which also plays into Star Wars. You have the rebels that are thinking they're doing everything that's right. And we see that in the sequel trilogy a lot, where they kind of, and Andor especially, where they're going back and forth on what's good and what's right on both sides, where you have the Empire doing these terrible things, but then you have people inside that are like, oh, but we're doing this for the betterment of whatever. And then you have the rebels that are like, no, everyone's got to die, even if they're on the other side, just because they're against us. And it's like, okay, but you're still killing people.
You know what I'd like to see? Actually, you bring up a really good point. I feel like I want a villain. I want a person who's on the Empire who never like truthfully sees that it's corrupt.
Right.
Like I want them the whole time to just be like, no, this is the right thing to do for the people, for the galaxy.
Well, that's kind of what what's the character? Oh my god, he lives with his mom.
Cyril
Karn, right?
Memorable character.
Yeah.
He's kind of that character. He's not bad enough that you're saying, James, but like he's on that first cusp of what we're doing is the right thing and what I'm doing is right, and I'm so vigilant in doing what's best for the galaxy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But he's on the early
thinking
phases.
of Deidre in that show, and I was like, nah, she's kind of bad.
Yeah. Well, we saw it in Solo with the whole recruiting theme and how it was this jovial sounding, March of Hitler. Like we're gonna like portray ourselves as the good guys, and they feel like join the Empire and see new worlds, and
Right.
But we did see that side of the recruitment element of the Empire.
We didn't see it.
Yeah.
Cyril's a good pick, but I guess I was really picturing somebody who like goes down with the ship. Is like this is the right way to be. I will die for the Empire, and it's a good thing. And they're never a villain. They're from their eyes, their perspective, the world they grew up in, it has only solved problems. And these people over here are the only people who are causing all the problems. It would work if they just would stop blowing things up or whatever. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm getting a little off topic. John, I want to hear your thoughts on what Amanda had to say in this article.
What are we talking about? Oh,
yeah. Everything about the
yeah.
Acolyte.
Yeah, I liked what she had to say about the institution of the Jedi Order, is what I assume she's referring to. And it's sort of, end of the High Republic. Everything's supposed to be peaceful. The Jedi are in power. But she's alluding to the fact of, what can happen when one institution is sort of in control of how this mystical thing should be used. And so it seems like what they're approaching this as is there are people who are glad that the Jedi Order exists, that it is peacetime, but they're getting a little skeptical of their power and questioning things like, why do we have to do it this way? And that sort of thing. And, you remember hearing them saying that this is going to be like a detective story. I believe I got to remember his name because I can't call him the guy from Squid Games, but I believe he's playing a former Jedi Master or something like that.
His first name's Jay, J-A-E.
Yeah, or Jay. He may be disillusioned or something, and she's Stenberg is playing his apprentice or former apprentice, something like that. So I think it may be one of those. Huh?
Lee Jung Jae.
Lee Jung Jae, yeah, that's him. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, I know this is supposed to be a dark side story, but I wonder if it's people who have been a part of the Jedi Order or whatever the hierarchy may be, who are discovering other things, whether that be Sith artifacts or something like that, that are helping them understand the Force in a different way. I don't want this show to be like, here's the point of view of the Sith and why the Sith is the way, or something like that. I hope this is sort of a murky sort of area. And I don't want to use the word gray because then people are like, oh, gray Jedi, okay. But I think like we saw it in the prequels, and my firm belief is that the Jedi sort of shot themselves in the foot and screwed up in a big way based on how they were operating. And I think this show might be like the start of why that was the case. And I think that's very interesting. And I like what she had to say about just, her involvement and being excited to be a part of it. I think that's great. So hopefully we get more of that. I forget what we saw at Celebration a year ago. I know not everyone got to see it. I'm sure there's
it was so cool.
Around. I remember saying that was the best footage we've seen here at Celebration, and that was all the stuff we saw. Whether it was Ahsoka or
her character has a very Visions-esque.
It's gonna be a really beautiful looking show. I think sort of like it will be held to the same standard as like Andor from a visual and production standpoint. Now, story, I think this might be more interesting because it is delving into the mystical sides of things and with the dark side flavor. So I'm very excited for this. And the fact that we haven't gotten a lot about the Acolyte yet, and the rumor is that it's coming out in June. I know they like to really speed things up as things get closer. So maybe May the 4th is the kickoff for that marketing for this as Bad Batch ends. But just getting this here, it's allowing me to wonder and speculate and get excited. And for me, that's always a good thing.
Yeah, there was something else I forgot to mention in the article that really stuck out to me was when Amanda met with Leslie Headland, she said that all the concept art was her in all the costumes and everything. And it reminded me very much of how in The Mandalorian, Jon Favreau wrote that role for Giancarlo Esposito. And he was like, this role is for you. So I hope you take it because I wrote it for you, which is funny because Matt's trying to finish up Better Call Saul in our house. And I've never watched that before, but he's in it. So every once in a while, I look at the TV because I hear his voice and I'm like, hello, Moff Gideon. And that character is literally Moff Gideon. I'm going to be honest. It's the same character. Yeah. So I laughed.
He's sort of the same in The Boys as well.
Yeah, so it made me laugh because I was like, oh, okay, I get why, Jon Favreau was like, I want that evil dude just dressed up in a cape. And he was like, okay,
I think
basically
he's
the same
also
game.
like that in Far Cry. I've never played it, but like my
Good
impression
for
from that
him. He
character,
found his
it's like
little box. He's in it. He's having a good time. I love it. But yeah, Amanda said that all the character art had her face on it, and
Yeah.
Leslie was
that's
very
cool.
much like, if you don't do this, I'm in trouble because I made this whole show for you.
it's wild.
Mhm.
That's such a crazy honor to think, like, you know, you've been working in that business for a little while and somebody comes along and they're like, hey, I got the chance to write Star Wars and you're the one. Like, I'm screwed if you don't take this. It's like
Mhm.
that's a pretty neat thing.
Did she say what Headland saw her in that made her say like, "Oh, she's who I want"? Like, did they
Not in this
reveal that?
interview. Not in this
Okay,
interview.
because I always like when I hear that, I'm always like, I gotta go watch whatever that is now, so I can get an idea of what she saw in that.
Mhm.
Not even just the actor in that particular type of role.
Mhm.
And yeah, my apologies. So it's Lee Jung Jae. I'll remember that. I hate I don't like being like, oh, the guy from oh, it's Kramer. I like try
Yeah.
to remember the person's name. So I'll try to remember that in the future.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in the Acolyte. I'm when it, like, John, the way you're saying about like the Jedi Order and everything, I I'm hoping the show is a little bit different. I tend to see it more like you have a kid and the parents are good and the parents are raising them right. They're like, but then you have this like friend that's like, hey, you should come down to the train tracks with us or whatever, and you're like, I got to be home by the street lights or whatever. And it's like the parents are trying to do the right thing, but there's this dark side of this other entity. It's like, do you really listen to everything your parents tell you to do? Dude, you got to let go. You got to break away. They have control over you, be your own person or whatever. And that is like more like the dark side to me. And I could see when you have the High Republic that is clearly taking care of business, you know what I mean? They're handling these like pirates over here, and they're handling these like, plant alien creature things over here, everything that's been going on in the High Republic, and they're doing a good job at it. But when the Sith and the dark side are out there planting seeds the whole time, it's going to come into question where they're going to be able to convince certain people, like, why do you trust these guys? Why are they, why do you think that, why do you let them be in control of everything?
So
Why do you
Palpatine
let
in
them
the prequels.
What?
So Palpatine in the prequels to Anakin, basically.
Sort of, yeah, but I think that's like it all leads to that. Yeah. I don't think, I mean, we've talked about this before and I don't want to get into it, but like, I really don't think the Jedi did much that was wrong. I think they were just infiltrated by the bad thing. But I hope that the Acolyte shows that, because we don't really have anybody in the dark side like taking over. So it's more like that seeds of the dark. Like, what is the dark doing when the light is still prevalent, when it's still like at its height?
She's playing a former Padawan, so she's young and she's already out. So clearly her disillusionment already happened. But I love that we don't really know a ton. So I can't wait to, and it seems like at this point we're not going to get a lid blown off. So we're going to go in relatively curious, which is pretty cool.
I just remember Carrie-Anne Moss in like the teaser was just, she shows up in like a total kind of like superhero stance.
Yeah.
Fight
like knock
scenes
someone
and stuff.
back and they're like,
yeah,
across the room kind of thing.
And
I think
Jonas.
Amanda does it. She is kind of like testing her type thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And Jonas is playing a Jedi Wookiee.
Good for him.
Amazing.
Good for him.
I almost forgot about that. That's so awesome. Well, we're going to move on to our next story. But before we do that, I do want to toss out that at the end of the Resistance report this week, we're going to be doing Ask the Resistance. So now is the time to submit the Star Wars questions that you have using that hashtag Ask the Resistance. Go ahead and throw it in the chat, and we can lead up to and get a good body of questions there for that segment. But before we even get there, I want to check out a super chat that came through.
So we have a couple super chats. A couple of them are questions, so I'm going to hold those till the end.
Perfect.
However, I do have one from Nerdy Seb. Thank you so much. Nerdy_Seb. Thanks for the super chat. They said, hey guys, been a while. Hope y'all are well. It's been a week. It feels like forever. But when we take a break, it's literally just 1 week.
Yeah.
But it's because we do so much that when we take a week, people are like, where have you been?
That's true. Yeah.
It ended up last week I got very sick. I'm still kind of getting over it. I don't know if you hear it in my voice, but
No.
yeah, that amongst other reasons is why we took a break because I couldn't talk. I had no voice for 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Anyway, but thank you. Other than that, I'm doing okay. How are you guys doing?
I'm
good.
Great.
Solid.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Carrying on.
I start a new job Monday, so I'm excited about that. And beyond that, spring's coming. Daylight savings, feeling good.
Bennett starts a new soccer session, not like playing games, but like a training session. It's coming up, so we're pretty excited about that.
My daughter
really
turns
looking forward
3 on Saturday, so that's another.
That's
my
wild.
baby boy started to roll over today. Can you believe it? Like I forgot like all these like big things because when you go through it, it's kind of just like it happens and it's over. But now that I'm going through it the second time, it's like I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait, is he? And he's like,
yeah.
I had to relearn stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really funny. And then
you
also
had to learn rollover.
Yeah,
I did. I still do.
And then it's also really funny with kids, and you only know this if you have them. I guess you don't. I guess you can know them otherwise, but your kid starts to look different every time they get a little bit older. So like they start with looking one way, and then a couple months later, you're like, oh, it looks like Matt. He looks like Matt, and now he looks like my dad, not Matt, like my father, his grandfather. Which is hilarious to me because my dad tried for 3 times to get a boy and got all girls, so didn't have any sons. And now my dad's doing the ultimate move, whereas he didn't get any sons, but he got a grandson that looks like him. Psych,
nice.
he wins. But yeah, fun times.
Yeah, those are much better times than mine. I was gonna say, oh, Lacey's gone, but I don't know. She disappeared. But I was just going to say Dune 2 comes out this weekend. I was like, that's a big deal. I'm excited for that.
What's that?
Hello.
Dune?
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Do we have to move the screens around? No.
That's fine.
Anyway.
No.
We do. I mean, we can probably get to the other 2 super chats now, I think, Lacey.
Don't we have other stories?
Oh yeah,
they're questions.
One of them. I mean, one of them's a question and it's a joke.
Oh, okay. Which one? Oh, GK Bowles.
Yes.
GK Bowles, what up? Thanks for the super chat.
Thank you.
GK says, "What's up, y'all?" I love how everybody uses y'all. What did Leia's adoptive parents say when she used to sleepwalk as a child? Uh-oh, it's the rise of Skywalker.
Hey-oh!
Wah, 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 wah.
We should have saved that for Ask the Resistance.
Yeah. Thank you, GK Bowles. Appreciate it.
That's good.
What does the GK stand for, Bowles? Is Bowles your first name, your last name, your middle name?
Great Kinetic Bowling.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Anyway, back to the stories.
Back to the stories is we got a interview in Games Radar with Andor Star. I said that right. Stellan Skarsgård. Oh man, that's a tongue twister if you say it. Andor Star Stellan Skarsgård. Anyway, he says that he prefers to think of the show as Star Wars for grown-ups, which is a little controversial statement there. But the other part of the headline is that he is kind of hinting that season 2 is actually going to end up being later this year. And I was going to ask you guys if you thought that was accurate, because personally, right off the top, I don't. I think he's misfired before, right? And some other people have.
I think he just doesn't care, to be honest. He's like, whatever. I think it comes out this year, whatever.
John, what are your thoughts on the article? What he had to say? But specifically, I want to know about that season 2 release date. What are you thinking? Andor?
Well, as I
September?
understand it, Stellan knows exactly when the show's coming out, and it's cryptic, but he wrote an equation on a blackboard.
God, you
and
always do this joke. Can you get a new
whoever
one?
can figure it out will know the date of when Andor season 2 comes out. That's to my understanding. That's completely 100% accurate,
All
and
right.
not based on any previous works of fiction. Anyway, you're welcome for the reference. I love this dude. I always liked him. I think he's great. I agree with James. Maybe he doesn't exactly know, because he said end of this year, maybe early next year, and I think everyone was kind of eyeing early next year for the return of Andor, because there are openings now, and we do have a celebration coming in 2025. So could Andor, like if Skeleton Crew does come out at the end of this year and that wraps by around the holidays, then you have that opening, because there's no more Bad Batch, and we haven't heard anything else animation wise coming. So then you have
They are
nothing.
hiring animation artists today.
Yeah, so I'm saying they have nothing coming out
Yeah.
next year. The animation
Yeah.
the series take years to develop. So you're going to have that January to celebration time where you're going to put out nothing leading up to celebration. So I think it wouldn't shock me if Andor does come out, and maybe we get that similar type of situation where we get an episode, or maybe even the finale of Andor at Celebration Japan, and then it comes out like that next day for everybody. One of those types
Probably
of situations.
that night.
I think that'd be really cool. So I'm still thinking early 2025, possibly even something, because it's 12 episodes. If you start it in January, late January, you'll finish up around the time of celebration. So I think that'd be a perfect fit there to close out that, and potentially close out the foreseeable future for Star Wars Disney Plus shows, because there's nothing else in the pipeline besides Ahsoka 2. So I don't know what else is coming. So I still think Andor early part of 2025, and I would love it to close out at Celebration, because I do think especially diehard fans would have a lot of fun watching that together, especially if it's the thing that builds up to the very beginning of Rogue One.
Sure. Lacey, Star Wars for grown-ups, what do you think?
I was going to say, that's the one phrase in this whole interview that stood out to me, was the Star Wars for grown-ups phrase, because I think actually that's a perfect way to describe Andor, because Star Wars in general is for children. George has said it. Everybody knows that. A lot of people like to use that in internet fights as Star Wars for children if you're getting upset online about something. However, I find in this example, Andor is for grown-ups. I don't think, and anybody's allowed to prove me wrong, that kids are really lining up to watch Andor. It's very kind of dark and serious, and the intelligence level is high for Andor. That's what makes it so great. That's why people love it. It's a little darker and grittier than your normal Star Wars. There aren't any cute little green aliens running around to complement the darker themes. Therefore, I actually liked that he said this, Star Wars for grown-ups. I think he takes pride in that. They're like, hey, I'm a little part of a little bit more serious Star Wars, and I understand that. And I think that while I love Andor, and I think it's so well done, and it's has so many really meaningful moments, like, Kino Loy and all these other things, but it's not my favorite. And it's because I think it's the Star Wars for grown-ups, whereas I like more of kind of the fun, happy ending, magical puppet stuff. And you're not really seeing that in Andor. I think they had two puppets in that series, and that's
And
okay.
the pair of aliens that helped them at the end, yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. But again, nothing surprises me when he talks, Stellan Skarsgård, because he's just so straightforward. This is another job for him, and I kind of love that. I love that he's like, this isn't my dream to be a part. He's just like, I'm here to do my job, read my lines in epic fashion, and peace out to the next job.
Which
Sure.
This interview is happening because he's getting ready to release Dune 2. He's
Dune
in that
2,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah, and they are incredible movies. I haven't seen Dune 2, but like that's the vibe coming off of all of the reports and everything. And it just kind of reminds me that this particular actor is someone who chooses movies like that. Yes, he was in some of the original Avengers and stuff, but I think those were early when the MCU was still kind of trying to find itself, and we didn't really know where it was all going to go. So they were just like crazy big budget, big things. He's like, okay, that's cool. But even over his entire career, he's chosen very particular movies that are hard hitting and make you really think. He usually is not like very comedic or anything. And that's I think what's so exciting about him talking about the last season of Andor. I'll read that full quote just so that everybody doesn't just only ever hear that thing. He says, "It's the last season of it. It ends where Rogue One starts. So it's up to that point. I think it will be a very good, as already the first one was satisfying for me because it's sort of Star Wars for grown-ups. It's more realistic and complicated society that they're living in, and the claustrophobia of the fascist regime is palpable. I think we have a good season ahead of us." So I like the actor. I like the show. And his comments here do get me excited, even if, it's sort of a dig at maybe some people who don't like that thought. I think it's true.
I honestly didn't take it as a dig. I'm not saying you're saying this, James, but I didn't. Some people online were talking about it that way. They were like, that's not true. I didn't take it as a dig at all. I took it as very straightforward, like, hey, this is more serious. And it is. It's the more serious one. And we just spoke with Kyle Newman like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, who even himself said, everything can't be Andor. Everything can't be serious. So you do need some things like The Mandalorian to complement that. I don't think what he said was a dig. I completely don't. But I can understand why people might take it that way because everybody takes everything the wrong way nowadays.
I can't think of like a good example, but it seems like something you would say when you're trying to downplay all the other Star Wars content. Like, oh, that's the kiddie stuff. This is where the grown-ups come. You know what I mean? This is a real show, not like that other stuff.
I think it's prestige chasing. I think people.
I don't think he means it that way necessarily.
Yeah, I think people like to latch on to things that get acclaim from whether that's critics or or academies and award institutions because it validates the art. And Andor's looked at as like, art.
Because it means they have good taste. That's what they're valuing.
We've made art here. This is serious filmmaking. This isn't playtime. And I can see how that rubs people the wrong way because sometimes there is this probably inadvertent snobbishness that comes off when you say stuff like that. And I do think some people who maybe aren't the biggest Star Wars fans say like, this is how Star Wars should be. And that's a cousin to the people who are like, we need rated R Star Wars and we need sex scenes in Star Wars and stuff. And it's like, there are other things beyond Star Wars where you can get that.
They also use those for pull quotes, by the way, like the best Star Wars I've ever seen, where all the pull quotes for Andor.
Finally, Star Wars is like taken seriously. It's just like that type of stuff, and I do think fans who love all of Star Wars sometimes like to latch on to the, Rogue One and Andor are prestige Star Wars, and that's how I feel about that type of stuff. And it's not intended, but I think the perspective of that feeling sometimes can be received that way. And I don't think it's always intended. I think some people do and some people don't. But
I mean, I could flip the whole thing around too. Like, I know that George has said that a million times, Star Wars is for kids, but I can also find it insulting when somebody is like, you actually like Star Wars? You know what I mean? Like it's kid show or whatever. And you're like, well, like I know I'm an adult, but like there's a lot of like adult theme stuff and it's fun and blah, 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 blah. And you could defend it from a stance of like, I'm not watching, like a children's show. You know what I'm saying? I am watching this thing that is meant to be for everybody. I think somebody used to say there's some similar with Pixar. Is there adult movies that are kid friendly, not kids movies that are adult friendly? Like DreamWorks is kids movies that are adult friendly because they have adult jokes that go over the kids' heads. But Pixar movies are made for adults, but they put them in a framework that is more that kids can watch them.
It's the Guillermo del Toro animation is a medium, not meant for children.
Yeah,
It's
that is a good example. Anime in general or
Ghibli
something
stuff.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, those movies are kid-like movies, but those movies have a lot of adult themes that are for adults, and then kids tend to like them.
Yeah, you like cartoons, grow up. And it's like there's this argument of like it it goes both ways. I think Star Wars actually does a really good job at being that sort of like 4-quadrant thing. It's for everybody. It's for kids. It's for adults. It's for.
How about people stop caring what other people like? Just like
Oh, that's never gonna happen, John.
Live your life and shut up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this is for this person, this for this person, but this person should watch this. It's just like, just watch your thing. If you're like 45 and you like watching reruns of Mr. Rogers, have fun. Like whatever.
It always amazes me that people have more opinions about what people like and dislike than actual opinions about things.
Yeah, well, that's the way of the world. All right, what else we got cooking?
One last little thing here, and this was more of a rumor, but it was that Angela Bassett might be involved in Star Wars. The rumors that she met with Lucasfilm. Now, the reason this is tagged as a rumor, I don't know if anybody watching the show came across it, but it is behind a Patreon paywall from Daniel Rickman. So it's kind of one of those things where maybe we wanted to take a second and talk a little bit about rumors and when to believe certain things. Some of that. I don't know who wants to kick it off.
This rumor was everywhere. So when we were chatting offline, I was the one that was like, hey, should we talk about this? Because it was something that everybody was talking about over the past week, especially fans that love Black Panther or love her other work. You know, she is an Oscar nominated actress. So when rumors were flying that she was meeting with Lucasfilm, the question is, what could it be? Could it be a villain? Could it be someone in Star Wars? Is she actually meeting with them? And then we got into a really good discussion about how it is behind a paywall and what does that mean? And I think, John, you might be the best person to touch on this, only because in the past you have been the person to report on rumors or discuss rumors in a professional setting. So I think oftentimes, and now more than ever, us as fans and just people in general need to understand misinformation, what's real, what's not, what's a rumor and what's not a rumor, and when you should immediately believe something or when you should kind of take a step back and be like, is this real? Should I be spreading this everywhere? So I don't know, John, if you want to jump in.
Well, yeah, and I'm not here to promote someone's Patreon beyond our own, but I'm also here not to say one way or the other about someone who's like a scooper by a living. I did see about something non-Star Wars. Jeff Snyder, who love him or hate him, the guy has great sources and he seems to nail everything in Star Wars
and Marvel apparently.
Yeah, he I think doubted this guy, and then this guy turned out to be correct about something non-Star Wars. And I believe he's been hit or miss with Star Wars stuff. But when someone puts something behind their paywall, they're in other words saying like, I want your money in order for you to get this information, when they know darn well that once someone reads it, they're going to post it on Reddit or it's going to spread around. So you think about that element of it. But also, what is this? Like, so this is a rumor that she met with them to potentially talk about a role. So what does that mean? Would someone at Lucasfilm, like, does this guy have a source at Lucasfilm who's like, Angela Bassett was here today? Or does he know her PR rep from other stories or something like that? You can build a relationship by like, oh, I have this story and a PR rep contacts you to like pull it down. And then you develop an actual friendly relationship with that person. Like, it could be one of those situations.
Think about
I
Tim
think,
Morrison when he was first talking about Boba Fett, and they were like, he's doing it. And they were
yeah,
like,
I think, and I don't know this by experience, but I think more often than not, when we get stories like this, they are from the person's PR reps or publicists or whatever, because they do want that buzz. They want their name out there. It's free publicity.
Yeah.
You're attaching someone to a massive IP. She's already been in Marvel with Wakanda Forever and Black Panther. So
she was nominated for an Oscar for that.
yeah, a lot of this makes sense. So if she did meet with them, I wouldn't be surprised. But it is a rumor. It was behind a paywall, and these people are hit or miss sometimes with these things. And I don't personally know Daniel Richmond, but we'll see. But yeah, you just got to try to use your best judgment with these things. And if you have a scooper or a reporter who gets into these types of things and you find that they're often correct, then stick with them. And if not, don't. And it's up to you to decide whether you want to believe something. But when it comes down to something where an actor's met with a studio without any other tangible information, I typically just say like, oh, cool. Okay. I'm not like, Angela Bassett's playing the main villain in the Ray movie.
Right.
The problem is that you have all these sources, or not sources, but accounts online now that only will post the picture and then the logo of the franchise, and will put like source. Like they don't say it's a rumor. They'll just say so and so met with Lucasfilm on a role for Star Wars. Source
from this person.
Yeah.
This was interesting too, because not only we were discussing this story too, but also we were looking at the news of like the next Rey movie title. And it was like, there were people that were like, this is it, we can confirm it. And then very quickly after, other people were like, absolutely not. And so it's like, it's this thing where when we're talking about rumors, it's like, even sometimes these people that are good at scoops, it's like you have to take everything they say with a grain of salt, and you have to look at where even a lot of this news is coming from. Take a look at the sites and the sources and maybe try to figure that out. But again, always go back on the grain of salt thing. This, I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna say this Angela Bassett thing did happen. She did meet with someone at Lucasfilm, but it doesn't mean anything. There's probably been tons and tons and tons of people that have met with Lucasfilm about the possibility of something happening, whether it be actors or producers or directors. Absolutely. Yeah. So that doesn't surprise me at all. It's just what John was saying is probably exactly what it is that she just happens to have a good PR department that's working for her that says, hey, let's get this out to some people. And, as soon as we start hearing this person with this studio, you'll get the buzz, and it'll be a rumor, but it'll get a good day
and
or
get
two
the fan
of press.
reaction, how people are feeling about that rumor, and all that stuff.
I mean, I literally saw Marvel and DC, and it was this big like synergy thing,
things
all day.
Things that really are happening sometimes don't end up happening. So
right,
it's absolutely true.
As we've talked about. So all right, so we have super chats to get to, right?
Yeah, do we want to get into Ask the Resistance?
We can knock out the 2 super chats and then hop into the questions.
Okay, first up we have David Ford. Thank you so much for the super chat. Said, after working with Giancarlo on Parrish, I can tell you his character is different on his new show.
Okay.
Okay, David. Thanks for the super chat.
Track.
But then David. That means Parrish, he was that character again, right? That's another one. All right.
Then we have Stubby One Kenobi. Thank you so much for the super chat. Said, you are awesome. No, you're awesome, Stubby. Way to go, Stubby.
Stubby One.
All right.
All right. Yeah. Ask the Resistance time?
Yes, it is.
Let's do it.
I've been wondering, what are midi-chlorians?
So is Omega. All right. Nerdy Seb is hitting us up with a question. Hey, Nerdy. Thank you for the super chat earlier as well. Nerdy said, do you guys think after all the Disney Plus content is released, will they announce more shows or focus more on movies? James?
Movies. After all the Disney Plus content is released, I think that is going to be it for a little while.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same boat. Lacey, what do you think?
I think it's movies. It's pretty clear that Bob Iger is wanting to get more money and people into the movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed across the board. We're heading back to the movies. Thank you, Nerdy Seb. And then our last question, for the sake of time, is going to go to Darth Snips, or come from Darth Snips. Thank you, Snips. And her question is, what are you all most excited or hopeful to see in The Acolyte? So we already kind of talked about this before, but Lacey, do you have anything in particular that you're eager to see or maybe learn about?
I'm eager to see the fight scenes. I think this show is going to have some of the coolest fight scenes from what we saw in the trailer, what we were discussing earlier, and just that it's like dark side stuff. I think the stunt work is going to be insane. You guys know me. I'd be super pumped if there was any type of romance in this show. Would be wonderful.
Right.
I highly doubt that there is. It seems like it's more on the hey, bad guys are taking over side. So I'm gonna go with stunt work. I think that's what I'm most excited for.
Nice. James, how about you?
I think typically when we talk about this show, we think of it as this sort of dark side Sith, and that aspect of it is pretty cool. But actually, I'm really excited to see the High Republic aspect of it. I know that in the trailer there was a point where they show, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 Jedi, and they all light up their lightsabers at the same time. And I was like, we haven't really got something like that since like Attack of the Clones, it feels. Because most of the time when we see Jedi, we get introduced to new ones all the time, but they always feel like it's just them fighting like clones or stormtroopers or something, something. I was going to say what Lacey was saying, like the action scenes, but it from not necessarily like the choreography of it, but just literally from the visualization of seeing, I don't know, 10 plus or who knows how many Jedi all like in a big battle scene. Like that sounds awesome to me. It's a bunch of lightsabers and they're green, they're blue, they're purple, who knows? They're just not red. You know what I mean? I mean, red would be cool too. And it would be really interesting to see what we've seen in video games before. Have you guys ever seen that, where all the lightsabers go up and then all the red ones turn on?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool too. I don't think that's happening in the Acolyte, but I am excited to see at least the multitudes of Jedi that we might actually get out of this show. Pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah. I'm going with the whole pre-Palpatine Sith stuff. I want to learn more about the Sith. I want to learn maybe some things that we have never heard before, maybe some things that wasn't public knowledge to the Jedi at any point, because the Sith seem very ominous and mysterious to even the Jedi from most of what we saw to this point. So, whether it's Sith artifacts, whether it's Plagueis, anything that brings Sith to, because I mean, we've gotten so much with the Jedi. Like we need a balance in the storytelling, and it'd be just cool to not necessarily have a Sith dominated thing where it's like, here's the, 2 Sith, or here's Plagueis and his master, or whatever, but just being able to add a layer to understanding what the Sith are on a live action setting in a series like this, especially when we know it's sort of this detective type of story. I think it'd be cool to have some really cool realization about the Sith that make us go like, oh my God, to the point where we even view Palpatine in a different way, not in a good way, but in like a holy cow, that this is crazy how long blank has been going on, or
that's something. What I was talking about earlier. I think there's going to be people out there that are like painting the light differently, you know what I mean, casting that shadow on the light sort of thing, and maybe making us think sort of in that like Thanos was right sort of light, where it's like, oh man, maybe the Jedi aren't that great, and like they're sort of starting to twist that truth to make even the audience feel like maybe there is like a balance to the light and dark, like choose a side, it's not like these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. It's like both sides are okay. They might start playing in that world.
Or exposing the truth that the Jedi are corrupt. You know, that too. That too. With
I
great
don't know why
power
I'm like, but that.
comes great responsibility. All right. All right. That is
No,
it.
you didn't. It's the Madam Web one's different. It's when you have responsibility, you will gain great powers. John, you should know that. They changed it.
Or
Yeah.
it's back when
gotta
your
catch that
mom
one.
was doing research with him about spiders in the Amazon.
Yeah. Don't you know that this is the new version, John?
Yeah. Madam Web. I'm more excited for the 2 sequels they're doing. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that.
Morpheus drops on Disney Plus in a couple days.
Yeah. All right. That is it for Ask the Resistance. That is it for the show. So we want to thank everybody, whether you joined us live or you're listening on your favorite podcast app or watching after the fact on YouTube. Thank you so much for being a part of TRB. We hope you have a good time when you watch our show. That's the main focus. And we hope you love Star Wars as much as we do. And clearly, if you're checking out our podcast, you do. But thank you so much for being a part of what we got going on here. Make sure you're subscribed, spread the word, tell your friends. And if you do love what we do here, head to Patreon, because we are heading there right now, actually, for our live monthly Q&A, where if you are a patron, you can ask us questions about anything, and we will answer them and have a good, fun time. Crazy stories sometimes. So head over to patreon.com/resistance broadcast. Tiers start at just $5, and you get full access to the new content on the page, including mini episodes, exclusive podcasts, commentaries, polls, a lot of good times. And depending on where you are, we have it on the rankings. And in the tier structure, we have a Discord server. We have monthly calls, Zoom calls, a lot of good stuff. So check it out. Patreon.com/resistance broadcast. Special shout out to the Generals and Spice Runners: Carmelo, John Risi, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Rumore, Brendan McLaughlin, Sneaky Zebra, Colin Cormier, Dave Hornack, and Jolton Jedi DiMaggio. And the Spice Runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gelner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and the THEFORTWORTHIAN. And all of our patrons, all of our listeners, all of you, thank you so much. For me, Johnny Hoey on social media, and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. We just did an episode on Rocky. Check it out. Lacey, how about you?
People can find me on social media at Lacey Gilleran talking about Star Wars.
And Bad Batch reaction show guy, James Baney. How about you?
Yeah, I was going to say social media at Myra Trunks, but also on this channel at the Bad Batch Reaction Show. Every new episode.
Good stuff. As we aim to close that one out pretty soon. All right. Thank you all so much. We'll be back with you on Monday, where we are going to speculate a little bit more about the Acolyte based on Wikipedia. So we'll get into that Monday. But we hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time right here on the Resistance broadcast. We'll see you around, kids.